Hello, welcome to Papers Past. This is the channel where we rummage through old newspapers to discover what life was really like at the time and see history unfolding as it actually happened. So today I'm looking at the Hampshire Telegraph and Sussex Chronicle, otherwise known as the Portsmouth and Chichester Advertiser. It came out once a week, and the date on this one is Monday the 29th of September 1806. Note the price, sixpence. That's between £5 and £10 in today's money, so you had to be quite well heeled to buy one of these. Now, if we look down the front page, we can see that the layout of this paper, fascinating though it is, was quite different from those of today. No titillating or eye-grabbing headlines here. It's mainly adverts and notices aimed at the wealthy readers living in the south of England, particularly Hampshire, Sussex, but also as far away as Dorset. However, the town that pops up most is Portsmouth, and that's not surprising, as at the time England was at war with France, who under Napoleon had conquered most of Europe. Portsmouth, as one of Britain's main naval bases, was a hive of activity with ships coming and going all the time and troops embarking for foreign shores. Portsmouth Point, often abbreviated to Pompey, was particularly notorious as a hangout for prostitutes, spivs and drunken sailors who were keen to spend their cash on the myriad of pubs, gambling dens and brothels which had sprung up. Thomas Rowlandson's cartoon of the times says it all. Now, the first thing you notice on this page are a large number of adverts notifying us of ships and cargoes for sale. Not surprising, you might think, for a town like Portsmouth. However, if we examine the ads more closely, we learn that these were no ordinary ships. In this advertisement, which informs us of an auction of 2 ships and their stores at the Crown Inn at Weymouth, the first ship is described as the very fast sailing cutter privateer the Fox. It goes on to say the ship was built in Mevagissey in 1804 and is particularly well calculated for a privateer or gentleman's yacht or any other employ where dispatch is required. Smuggling, maybe? The other ship is also called the Fox, is French built and almost new. The sale, which begins at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, will be followed by the sale of the guns, warlike stores, provisions, iron ballast, etc. of both vessels. So what was a privateer? A privateer was a ship used for capturing and plundering enemy ships as a commercial venture. Not totally dissimilar to pirates then. The difference being that privateers had been issued with a letter of marque by their government, which was essentially a license to capture and plunder the ships of the enemy or their allies. It was a risky but highly lucrative and thriving business. Most ports along the south coast of England, not surprisingly, would have been involved in privateering at this time. And it wasn't just the English, the French were at it too. In fact, the English Channel in 1806 was really not a safe place to be. This picture, painted by Thomas Buttersworth around the time, shows a British brig attacking a French lugger. Now, this advert gives you an idea of just how lucrative privateering could be. Again, the sale takes place at the Crown Inn, Weymouth, and it reads, "The following vessels and cargoes detained as prizes by the private ship of war Diana, Robert White, Commander, and condemned to His Majesty in the High Court of Admiralty." The first ship mentioned is the Prussian brig Picolos, captured on its voyage from St. Thomas in the Caribbean to Emden, which is in Germany. Its extensive cargo includes coffee, sugar, cocoa and rum. The advert goes on to list a total of 3 ships and their cargoes for sale, all prizes to Robert White, commander. Now, Robert would have had to share the prize money with the Diana's sponsors, owners and crew, with a percentage also going to the king. However, on this voyage there is no doubt that Robert had hit the jackpot and made himself some serious money. Now, at the bottom of the page, I came across this advert notifying us of a sale at the Crown Inn, Gosport, of the following. All the stores landed from the Spanish ship of war San Ildefonso, and ordnance stores landed from the San Juan de Nepomuceno, captured off Trafalgar by the fleet under the command of the late Vice Admiral Lord Nelson, consisting of, and then it goes on to list the items for sale, including such things as iron guns, carronades, muskets and bayonets, round, double-headed and grape-shot, etc. All useful stuff, no doubt, for would-be privateers wanting to set up in business. Now, we all know about the Battle of Trafalgar, which took place in 1805, just the year before, and the story of the death of Lord Nelson on his famous ship, the Victory, which you can still visit today in Portsmouth. However, the story of the San Juan de Nepomuceno and her commander, Don Cosme de Churruca, I discovered, for the Spanish at least, is no less glorious. On the 21st of October 1805, the combined French and Spanish fleets joined battle with the British fleet off Trafalgar. As we all know, it ended up with a resounding victory for the British under Admiral Nelson, who famously died in his hour of glory. The San Juan Nepomuceno was one of the last ships still fighting, after most of the French and Spanish ships had either been captured or had surrendered. The commander, Don Cosme de Churruca, had previously ordered for the flag to be nailed to the highest mast, as a way to tell the enemy, allies, and indeed the ship's own crew and officers not to expect an easy surrender. As the hours passed, Churruca, whose leg had been torn off by a cannonball, the deck of his ship, covered by the blood of his wounded and dead seamen, continued to stubbornly order his ship's batteries to carry on firing. Mortally wounded, the Basque-born Churruca prohibited his officers from surrendering and ordered them to continue returning fire as long as he remained breathing. His officers kept to their word, even after Churruca had died and command of the ship had been passed to the second in command, Francisco de Moina, who continued to fight until he himself was killed. He was replaced by the next officer in command, who also refused to surrender. However, unable to break the circle of fire formed by up to 6 enemy ships, and in order to prevent the ship from sinking with all the wounded trapped below, the last officer left alive yielded with over 400 dead and injured on board. After Trafalgar, the ship was taken into British service and renamed HMS San Juan. And in honour of Churruca's courage, the cabin he had occupied while alive bore his name on a brass plate, and all who entered it were required to remove their hats as a mark of respect to a gallant enemy. Now, this advert takes us back to Weymouth again, and another sale at the Crown Inn. It's aimed at clothiers, drapers, army tailors, slop sellers, Buenos Aires merchants, etc. Slops, in case you were wondering, was the term used for cheap ready-made clothing. So slop sellers were a sort of Primarks of the day, if you like. The advert goes on to inform us that the sale will include a wide range of cloths salvaged from the wreck of the late ship Earl of Abergavenny, East Indiaman, lost in Weymouth Roads. It also notes that all the salvaged goods had been well washed in clear river water immediately on their being recovered from the wreck. So, how had this ship come to grief? Well, the Earl of Abergavenny had set sail from Portsmouth on the 1st of February 1805, destined for Bengal and China. 4 days later, on the 5th of February, on a stormy night, she struck the notoriously dangerous bank of sand and shingle known as the Shambles off of Portland Bill. The Earl of Abergavenny's captain was John Wordsworth, brother, in fact, of the poet William Wordsworth. Although holed and taken in water, he and his crew managed to get the sinking ship off the Shambles. They tried to beach her on Weymouth Sands, but tragically they didn't make it, and at 11 p.m. it sank, with a loss of 263 lives of 402 people on board. Those that did somehow manage to survive had climbed to the top of the rigging, and because the ship had sunk in relatively shallow water, the masts were still clear of the waves when eventually boats came to rescue them in the early hours of the morning. John Wordsworth was not amongst the survivors, and it was widely assumed that he had taken the decision to go down with his ship. The fact that the Earl of Abergavenny had sunk in fairly shallow water, about 50 feet or 16 metres, meant that salvage teams were able to recover much of the valuable cargo. Apart from the cloth mentioned in the advert, this included £70,000 worth of bullion, as well as a quantity of wine. In the picture, created in January 1806, we can see in great detail how the salvage operation was carried out. What is particularly interesting is the illustration of Tonkin's diving machine, one of the earliest types of diving suit. Notice the drawing of the diver on the stern, shouting out, "Haul up! Love it!"